This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. For the next 4 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, UK High Definition Radio, Euro High Definition Radio, Star Cable, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, the Pacific Rim, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, starting off tonight's show, is Dr. Lynne Kitei. She's an internationally acclaimed physician and health educator who pushed aside her successful medical career to pursue the Phoenix Light book and internationally award-winning documentary projects. She was leading the cutting-edge era of early disease detection and prevention as Chief Clinical Consultant of Imaging Prevention Wellness Center at the world-renowned Arizona Heart Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, until coming forward after several years of anonymity as a key witness to the historic and still unexplained mass sighting throughout Arizona on March the 13th, 1997, that we all know as the Phoenix Lights. Joining me now is Dr. Lynne Kitei. And Dr. Lynne, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rob. It is always a joy.
Tell me, Doctor, what is new as far as the Phoenix Lights are concerned?
Actually, this keeps evolving and keeps growing. Just as the book is now in its third print, and I am sharing new information. The latest edition, which just came out this past year, actually is an update because I remained anonymous for 7 years. After the mass sighting, I pushed my entire professional life aside, as you mentioned, to really try to find a logical source and meaning for what I had witnessed and photographed and continued photographing. And the more I looked, the more I found incredibly credible data from the history and similar sightings worldwide, and even the witness reports, finding a connection between all unexplained phenomena, which I go into in the book, and ended up 4 years later with a 750-page journal that I then had to decide what to do with, and I did go back to work at the Arizona Heart Institute while I pared down that book to the best, most credible information that I had compiled and came forward in 2004. From 7 years of anonymity, and have not looked back. It's just amazing where this journey has taken me. I had no idea, and certainly was very precarious to come forward as a physician, but it has been so rewarding and so enlightening, not only for myself, but knowing there are so many people out there worldwide who have had experiences, anomalous experiences that are real to them, even though most things can be explained. A small percentage cannot. And people that do have unexplained phenomena, experiences that I call ups, really come away life changed and searching, as I did, for a reason and an answer. At any rate, I just came forward with the latest edition as to what has happened since I came forward.
All right, so why don't we do a bit of a cliffhanger here, and we'll go into the latest edition and your new findings on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. Always a great pleasure having you with us, Dr. Kitei. You are a leader amongst those who are credible in the search of the unknown. Dr. Lynne Kitei is our special guest, X-Zone Nation. www.thephoenixlights.net. That's www.thephoenixlights.net. And the good doctor and I return on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the...
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
X-Zone Nation, I don't think there's anyone listening around the world tonight who has not heard of the Phoenix Lights or my guest this hour, Dr. Lynne Kitei. Her website is www.thephoenixlights.net. And Doctor, why don't you take us back to that evening of March 13th, 1997, and tell us what you saw firsthand.
Absolutely. Actually, on March 13th, 1997, and so much has happened since, and as you mentioned, when I first came forward in 2004, the official and accepted, other than the witnesses here, explanation for the Phoenix Lights was that it was military flares, and so much has happened to squelch that very, very, I have to say, explanation that to this day has never been reenacted. We can get into that if we have time, and certainly what people saw that night is mind-boggling. On March 13th, 1997, while thousands of people were looking up at the sky purposely for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, they also caught a glimpse of a 1 to 2 mile wide, either lights that seemed to be attached to something in an equidistant V formation, silent, gliding right over their heads, and many people also saw craft. And if anybody's interested in seeing the different craft, because there were many things that were happening on March 13th, 1997. It wasn't just one event or two events. It was many events, including orbs information, including different craft. And if you want to look at the website, the phoenixlights.net GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project, that's something new after a dozen years of compilation from hundreds and hundreds of reports from people throughout the state. It wasn't just Phoenix. It was throughout the state for many, many hours, starting at about 5:30 p.m. Actually, we have reports in New Mexico at that time, till as late as 5:30 the next morning, where I personally got a report from a Boeing crew who was coming into work early that morning at 5:30, and this mile-wide craft was actually hovering over their tarmac. And there were 100 reports to the National UFO Reporting Center, Peter Davenport in Seattle, Washington, to Village Labs, which was the clearinghouse here locally, to then Councilwoman and Vice Mayor Frances Emma Barwood, as well as Arizona MUFON, and a couple of wonderful investigators, Bill Hamilton and Michael Tanner, actually compiled 8 or 9 different craft that people saw that are now illustrated on the GAP page, Geospatial Animation Project, on the phoenixlights.net website. And if you take a look at them, I mean, it's really amazing what different people describe. Now, whether it was one craft that could morph into looking differently, or from the perspective of the location that the witness was looking, or it actually was a parade throughout the state, we may never know. But the bottom line is that there were many things happening throughout the state on March 13th. And when people describe these craft or these phenomena, they were going very low altitude, about rooftops. Some people said they could throw a stone at it. It was that close, just gliding along. And some people actually reported that it took off at a tremendous eye blink speed. And we're talking totally silent. It didn't even displace the air, no sonic boom when it took off. And other people actually described these orbs as detaching from the main object, going out into the environment, and then redocking with it again. What's that about? And if you look at that page, the GAP page, you'll see that one of the craft actually split in two. And another craft, which blew me away because I had already pushed my entire professional life aside after the mass sighting to try to find a logical explanation, and actually found a similar mass sighting 1 month before our mass sighting, February 19th in 1997, where there was a craft that actually traversed St. Petersburg, Russia. And when you look at one of the crafts that people described here throughout the state, it's identical to a video that someone took there. And it was also by the airport there. Now, you would ask me, what I saw. Actually, this all began for me 2 years before the mass sighting, when my husband, who's also a physician, and I had a very close sighting to our home of these orbs in a pyramid formation. And I happened to get pictures of it. It was so extraordinary. And we're pretty high in the mountain of Paradise Valley and have a panoramic view of the city skyline, so we know what planes and helicopters and streetlights and car lights look like, and flares as well, which, occasionally we see deployed. Very, very different. I mean, this was so extraordinary and awesome that we were mesmerized. And I did have pictures of it, had no interest or knowledge at all, Rob, of this topic. So I didn't even know what to do with the pictures I had, and wondered for 2 years what this advanced technology is. Now, what's really important is that most people don't know, because the media has really stretched the truth here, and there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there. Many people think of 1 or 2 events happening in Phoenix or throughout the state. Again, there were many, many events, and actually prior to March 13th as well. And there were other people like myself who were witnessing and photographing these orb formations. In fact, 2 months before the mass sighting. And this is pretty important as far as data goes, and I've really tried to collect the most credible data and have everything authenticated and analyzed. I went down to the University of Arizona Optical Science Department, Consciousness Study Department, Arizona State University Geology, Anthropology, Astronomy, and Mathematics departments, as well as the Brooks Institute of Photography in California, and Navy optical physicist Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who discovered some awesome amazing data that I have just shared for the first time after keeping it private for a dozen years in the latest edition, which we can get to if we have time. But the bottom line is that there were many things happening on March 13th, and when you look at the data, it speaks for itself. I mean, 2 months before the mass sighting, I caught the same phenomena in the same location, head on, turning into a V-shape, 6 pictures in a row, and a few of them are on the Phoenix Lights Network photo page if anybody's near a computer. Just take a look at them. I'd love somebody to tell me what it is. But it was so unnerving, Rob, because it was so massive, and I hadn't had an explanation for the 95 sighting that I called around, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport who saw the same thing at the same time, and actually one of them was a meteorologist and shared that in their own words that they were alarmed because this showed up in Class B restricted airspace at about 1,000 feet altitude, and there is a 30-mile radius around the center of the airport where anyone, especially at that altitude, that goes into that airspace must call into the tower. Well, nobody did. So they looked on radar, did not show up on radar. They picked up their binoculars to look, and in their own words, they described them as 6 points of light, equidistant, massive span, over a mile wide, that seemed to be attached to something. And you would hear this again during the mass sighting, but they couldn't quite see what it was attached to, turning against the wind. And I happened to catch pictures as it was turning, and then moving as a unit behind South Mountain, which is south of the airport. And I said, so what was it? And there was silence, and then one of the air traffic controllers said, beats me. And I said, you're air traffic controllers. You're supposed to know it's in our airspace, and you don't know what they are? So we have documentation that this thing was happening before the mass sighting, and then during the mass sighting, and after the mass sighting. So there's a lot more to this story.
You know what? After what happened this past weekend when that satellite that was the size of a bus fell from the sky and nobody knows where it landed or knew where it landed upon reentry, I've lost all faith in the people who are supposed to be, protecting our airspace.
Well, that's a point. That's a point. And just this past week, actually, which is really exciting for me because, as I mentioned, Dr. Bruce Maccabee analyzed my 1995 close sighting photographs, and it came up with such a fantastic conclusion that it was so bizarre, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And he actually presented the case in 1999 as the first authenticated photographic evidence ever of missing time, which we can talk about. But what was exciting for me this week is that there was an announcement from CERN, CERN, one of the European organizations.
That totally discredits Albert Einstein's...
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
they say that the world's largest physics lab, is saying that they have clocked subatomic particles called neutrinos traveling faster than light.
But we knew this was going. We knew this was going to happen. We knew that Einstein's theorems were based on the science of the day, that as we progressed, we would make further finds that would outdate his and prove him to be wrong. And this is just one of many examples that I predict that are going to be happening, proving the possibility of what members of the UFO community have been saying for years. Exactly,
and that's one of the reasons that I finally, in this latest edition of the book, felt it was important to share the data, because if it can help open that door a little bit and say, wow, there's data out there to show, unequivocally, that our primitive concept of linear time is primitive. that past, present, and future is not what real time is, and that there could very well be other times and spaces along with ours. And if you go that next step, then why is it such a stone's throw to say that there are intelligent beings?
Because it is going
in these other times and spaces.
It's very simple, because it's going to throw the scientific community on its butt, which it should be on its butt, because we know for a fact that history, archaeology, and science has lied to us from day one. These are the end days of the greatest deception known to mankind. Dr. Lynne, please stand by. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Exonation, Dr. Lynne Kitei is our special guest, www.thephoenixlights.net. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break and the news as the X Zone continues. We're right here, live from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Hey, check out the September issue of the X Chronicles, a tribute to the 10th anniversary of 9/11. We have had over 200,000 reads.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Dr. Lynne Kitei is my special guest this hour. We're talking about the Phoenix Lights, and I knew that Craig, the producer on the other side of the glass, was going to play that song. I just didn't know when. Thanks very much for that, Craig. Dr. Kitei, always great talking to you and having you here with us. But I have to ask you, let's get to the meat of the subject. What is new? What new discoveries have you come up with?
Actually, there's quite a few. That's why I came out with the latest edition of what's happened since I came forward in 2004, the Phoenix Lights, a skeptic's discovery that we are not alone. Because not only have there been additional sightings worldwide, and again, when I came forward in 2004, the official and accepted explanation outside of the Phoenix, Arizona area was that the Phoenix Lights were flares. And by the way, 3 years after the fact, the military, because of the insistence from witnesses and Councilwoman Frances Barwood, who was running for Secretary of State to get answers, for a reenactment, and here going back to what I mentioned earlier, I have photographs that prove that not only were these phenomena there 2 months before the mass sighting, but also 2 years before the mass sighting, in the close pictures that I took of the close orbs. The same phenomena is in the background in the same location there. So, hey, I had documentation and video on the night of March 13th in the same location and confirmed by air traffic controllers the next morning. That, whoever did this did it at least 3 times, do it again. Well, 3 years after the fact, on March 7th, finally, they announced that 3 Air National Guards, I believe it was New York, Michigan, and California, were coming into town. They must have been practicing for weeks to show everybody the Phoenix Lights, and I have to say, it was a major joke. I mean, if anybody is on Facebook and wants to look at my page, Phoenix Lights Network, and please join us there, I have posted a video of exactly what they did, which was really shooting themselves in the foot, because it was nothing like the real Phoenix Lights. I mean,
it kind of reminded me of what the Air Force did with the Roswell case when they dropped the dummies.
Right, but they really, it was a joke, and it certainly was a failed attempt. And by the way, the Phoenix Lights and the videos that were taken that night around 10 o'clock have never been reenacted, for the record. The other thing that's really interesting is that the day after a USA Today article on June 18th, 1997, was when the former governor of Fife-Symington called a press conference and actually marched out one of his aides with a giant alien head and made a mockery of the sighting and really angered many people, particularly parents that were with children that saw these phenomena up close and at very low altitude. They knew that was not from here, and they knew that something was going on here, and he made a joke out of it. Well, 10 years after the mass sighting, which is also new news to many people, he came forward to say that he actually saw it. I mean, what's that about? I mean, it's courageous that he did that, and certainly was a great step forward in saying that an elected official saw something that was extraordinary, and he says that it was otherworldly. One of the other new things is that a 911 police operator came up to me recently at a presentation, and she said, I heard that the Phoenix Police Department says they only got a few calls that night, as did Luke Air Force Base, by the way, and many people got the phone number of the National UFO Reporting Center from Luke Air Force Base, which is interesting. But
I'd just like to say at this time that Peter Davenport at the National UFO Reporting Center does a phenomenal job.
Oh, yes, and he has many. I mean, if you look at that site connected with the Phoenix Lights, it's just amazing. The wonderful reports that he got, and he does an amazing job.
Yes, he does.
Anyway, just being there for people to call and share. But at any rate, this 911 police operator says, I just retired, and I'm telling you, all hell broke loose that night. There were hundreds and hundreds of calls at the 911 Phoenix Police Center. Not only that, but helicopters. Phoenix police helicopters were sent out to investigate. I mean, there's so much more to this story. So I share some of that new information in the book, and also she's interviewed in the documentary, which is phenomenal. She is really amazing, and we have a new pilot that just came forward and so forth, and also a new story about a commercial airline was actually flying from Phoenix to California that night of March 13th, and about 11:30 that night, they saw this object hovering over Las Vegas. They said it covered Las Vegas, and they got really alarmed, and they called whatever the radar
Let me ask
people
you this. How can an object hover over the city of Las Vegas without the military, air traffic control,
I gotta tell you this.
The media getting a hold of this? It makes no sense.
I know. This is an amazing story because they did call air traffic, and we're in the midst of reporting it and asking if they're getting anything on radar, and another commercial pilot calls in. I have the whole story in detail in the book now, but and they're afraid to come forward because this other fella from another commercial airline called in, and he was all frantic. What is this? And suddenly,
I guess he would be frantic.
A male voice comes on, a different male voice, very authoritative, saying, I want to know exactly what you're seeing, and and goes into that, and it freaked them out. And they said, they hesitated and said, well, we don't see it anymore. And they were kind of freaked out by whoever this was that got onto their message system. And
frequency.
About a half hour later, they were approaching California when suddenly there was a huge fireball right next. I mean, this is a commercial airline with 140 passengers and a crew, and there was a fireball next to them, and they realized it was a flare, which was like a half a mile away. And then suddenly, coming the opposite way, was a military jet with afterburners, and one of the pilots actually jumped out of their chair because it was so close and scared the dickens out of them. And they felt at that point, Rob, that somebody was trying to send them a message to keep quiet. And this person just shared with me last year this whole story. So there's a lot more to the story, and like I said, I had a 750-page journal.
But tell me, Dr. Lynne, I'm sure other members of the X Zone Nation are wondering this too. Why does it take so long for people to come forward?
Well, I know how it took me. First of all, number one, the ridicule and the snickering and the jokes and the discrediting that was so prevalent when I was keeping anonymous those 7 years. I was so happy that I had stayed anonymous. I wanted to continue to stay anonymous because it wasn't pretty when people came forward. Here locally, I have to say that the media was, especially the TV media, was very open, and there happened to be one reporter who saw it himself. So he was trying to get to the bottom of it, and he did an incredible job. But even when the former vice mayor, Councilwoman Barwood, just asked innocently in May at a council meeting, because she was getting so many hundreds of calls from her constituents, what's going on here? Maybe we should look into it. She was plastered. I mean, they made jokes in the paper and little cartoons, and it was really sad that people really held back, and especially when the former governor, Symington, mocked the sighting, bringing out his aide in the giant alien head. Many people, I'm sure, were afraid to come forward, and I was pretty happy that I didn't either, I have to tell you. But it got to the point where I had so much incredibly credible data that I thought it was too important not to share.
All right, let me ask you this. Why did you decide to spearhead the entire Phoenix Lights phenomenon?
It wasn't so much spearheading it. It was that I had what I had. In good conscience as an educator, because for the last 35 years, actually, I have been donating my own time and monies to community education of the reality of vital health issues. I have a company that produces AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse prevention education materials for schools, and I'll get into that in a second because I'm now working on one for this topic. But once I had what I had, and it blew me away because I knew nothing about this topic, and I figured if I'm a medical doctor and I didn't know anything about this topic, and here I have so much information that people might be, if they're curious, interested in looking at, how can I stick what I have in a drawer? So, when I came out with the book in 2004, I had no idea where it would lead. I just was, I knew that if I didn't come forward as myself, it was probably going to sit on a shelf. But once I did come forward, and, I have such a passion now to get this information out there, although I'm not trying to convince anybody. If I could be a credible voice so others will actually look at the data, then I've done my job. And after I came forward, I have to tell you, Rob, I was blown away. I have close to 20,000 emails from people all over the world, as mentioned earlier, who have had experiences and they're afraid to talk about it.
But how many of these people do you think are actually looking for the truth, and how many of these people do you think are looking for their 5 minutes of fame?
No, well, I have to tell you that many people that contacted me did it in total confidence, and confidentially, and just so they could tell one other person what happened to them. And again, most things can be explained, but it's real to them. And everybody reacts differently. Everybody comes from a different background, from different upbringing, from a different belief system.
There are a lot of people who believe the UFO community is causing all this hype just because they want recognition that they've got nothing better to do with their time than to see things in the sky that really aren't there. And then you've got the other people who believe that the UFO community, for some unknown reason, is trying to taint the government.
Well, I have to say that I try not to get involved with all that stuff.
Right.
I'm an educator and a scientist, and I'm trying to stick to the data and do the best that I can to get credible information
Where
out
does
there,
the
people can learn and grow.
Okay, where does the data lead you to?
Where's the data lead me to? Okay, good question. Well, first of all, once I came forward and I was approached by a number of filmmakers, and certainly, producing video and workbook curriculums for years, I really wanted to do something, visually with this as well, and actually gave up my wonderful job at the Arizona Heart Institute to produce the documentary, which is one of a dozen International Film Festival Awards, which is amazing. I mean, not only for a documentary, but certainly one of this genre. The interest is there. People, there's many scientists behind closed doors. The interest is there in the community. I mean, now that the internet and social media at a blink of an eye can show somebody what somebody else has seen.
If that is the case, if that is the case, Doctor, and I'm sorry for cutting in here because we're moving very quickly on time. If that is the case, that the social medias are so quick and information can be spread so wide, how can we have not seen unequivocal proof on the internet anywhere that UFOs are real, that they do come from another planet, another galaxy?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I have to tell you that I have never said what they are, only that they are. And it's time to get this topic out in the open.
But what happens if they're part of national security? Do the citizens have the right to divulge to the world what the country is doing to protect them?
Right. No, I hear you. In fact, there's another piece that I just posted on Phoenix Lights Network on Facebook that a recent NASA captured the same exact phenomena as the Phoenix Lights, as I captured actually on March 13th during the mass sighting of 3 orbs in a giant triangle. And I couldn't believe it. Their address to that was that, well, we've seen a lot of things like this, but they're not a threat to national security. And, if you go back to the only public study, Project Blue Book, which closed in 1969, that's the exact conclusion that they came to. But, I have to say, Rob, that I feel personally, even though it's wonderful that other people are out there trying to get disclosure of government and the military, and there are countries coming forward with thousands of files saying, hey, science, take a look at this. Something anomalous, advanced, intelligent is gracing our skies.
Okay, well, hold on here. Let's just take a sec here because I've got to take my commercial break very shortly. We're talking about governments coming out with files. Don't you think that if there were any secret files on UFOs or spacecraft from another planet, that they would have been brought forward by the people who did such a horrendous job in bringing forth all the nitty gritty on the war in WikiLeaks?
Rob, I don't even go there anymore.
Yeah.
To me, this is a grassroots effort. The Phoenix Lights, by the way, was the first mass sighting that had chat rooms on the internet. And I think as people see more and educate themselves, and we can talk about that in the next segment.
Sure.
I'm now going to the next rung after the book and the documentary, right into the schools, and I'm working on a comprehensive curriculum on the reality of this topic.
All right, Dr. Kitei, please stand by. Exonation Dr. Lynne Kitei is our special guest. www.thephoenixlights.net. www.thephoenixlights.net, and we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with not the news. That's coming up after this break. Check out the X Chronicles newspaper, X Chronicles for September. The October issue is coming out in a week and a half. Online, www.xchronicles-newspaper.com/publisher. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Dr. Lynne Kitei and I return. Don't.
In over 36 years in law enforcement, I've learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, extraterrestrials, and UFOs, how we gather that evidence of their existence, preserve that same evidence, and present it to a court of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Come with me on a journey that seeks to prove with undisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Join me, Larry Lawson, host of the Paranormal Stakeout, coming to the X Zone Broadcast Network. Check out the broadcast schedule for Paranormal Stakeout with yours truly, Larry Lawson, at www.xzbn.net. For more information about me, my travels, and my team, check out our website at www.paranormalfbi.com or join us on Facebook at Florida Bureau of Paranormal.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. X-Zone Nation, Dr. Lynne Kitei is my guest this hour. www.thephoenixlights.net is the website. And first of all, Dr. Lynne, thanks very much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking with you. You're the most passionate person I've ever spoken to pertaining to the Phoenix Lights, and you're also a very credible person. So thanks very much for joining us. I understand you're doing something now about bringing ufology into schools.
I am.
Tell us about that.
We were talking before the break. I mean, God bless the people that are out there, trying to get disclosure from government and military and so forth, because I think that's, the voices, the more voices that are heard, the better, and certainly raising awareness of the community and people out there that aren't familiar with this topic has not only been a passion of mine, certainly, but now that the book and the documentary have kind of gotten a life of their own. And again, I would never have come forward if I didn't think this was so important. And if I can lend my expertise, and I have a vast knowledge of not only science, and also I've worked with NBC and USA Cable and so forth, and really kind of combine that not only to do my video workbook curriculums on the reality of vital health issues, but at this juncture, I feel it's vital that we get the reality of this vital issue into the classroom. And in fact, one of the impetuses for me to even do the documentary was when I was working at the Arizona Heart Institute full-time and doing radio programs like this into the night, and on the weekends, Barnes & Noble and Borders tours. Some parents had seen me at Barnes & Noble and actually arranged at a very fine middle school for me to present to over 200 students there, which blew me away that they would even be open to this topic. And I have to tell you, when I walked in, you could hear a pin drop. This was the last period of the class. The teachers couldn't believe it. Those kids thirst for this knowledge. And I realized at that moment that there is nothing, and I mean nothing, in our history books about this topic at all. And that really prompted me to do the documentary. And at this point, there still isn't anything in the classroom, although there are certain teachers that have emailed me from all over the United States.
You know what? We've got about a minute left, and I'd just like to interject something here, that there may not be anything in the history books. However, I believe that in the Bible and other theological books, there are references to what we are seeing today in the skies over this planet. Dr. Kitei, thank you very much. We'll have to have you back on in the near future because you and I still have so much to discuss. You're welcomed here anytime. If there's any breaking news on the Phoenix Lights or any other phenomena that you'd like to share with the world, give me a call. We'll get you right on.
Thank you so much, Rob. And when we get this, we're now working on a pilot program in the classroom right now in a charter middle school. And once we get it together, I certainly would love to share it with your listeners. And
count us in.
There's a lot more happening. So
all right. Count us in for any help that we can give you, Doctor.
Really appreciate it.
Take care, my dear. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Exonation, Dr. Lynne Kitei, www.thephoenixlights.net. A great lady. We'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past. Don't go.